Hey, friends, and welcome to another podcast episode. My name is Taylor, and I am joined by my co host, Kelly Gilster.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
And today's episode, we can't wait to share with you. We just got off of an amazing interview with Daniel Shackleford, and he's a filmmaker that I really admire. Not only his work is fantastic, but he's also just a fantastic human being. And honestly, I think you'll know exactly what I mean by the end of today's interview. But first, Kelly, what's new with you?
I'm trying to implement some early morning working. Taylor, I think that you've kind of inspired me. I feel like whenever we're working on some back end things and I'll wake up at 7 and I see you've been up since 5 and you're sending me a few text messages, but then I'm the opposite. I'm always sending you text messages at 10:30 at night and you've already been asleep for a couple hours, I feel like. But I'm really having a hard time getting all my work done, with the scheduling of the kids and all that stuff. So I've done it before where I've been diligent about waking up at 4:30 or 5, starting my work day. I have such a clear head at that point of the day. So I'm trying to get back into that routine. And so I've been setting my alarm and being more intentional about it. So yeah, what about you, Taylor?
Yeah, honestly, I've always been a morning person. Like I was that kid at sleepovers, like when I was, 10, 11, where I was like, guys, it's 9 o'clock and we go to bed now. And always the first one up. And it was like, I don't know, it's just always been me. So it's like lean into what you're naturally inclined to do, I guess. Honestly, yeah, my kids just started gymnastics actually. So that's like a whole learning curve and really just trying to maximize time where I can do those like extracurricular things with them during the week right now during slow season. But Kelly and I are so excited. We have been working on some resources for you guys. One of those things is a free guide for communication between wedding filmmakers and wedding planners. I know that something that a lot of people kind of get hung up on or find challenging is when you grow your business to a level to where the communication goes from talking to the clients directly and now all of a sudden having this middleman or this middle woman involved who is the wedding planner and how to really navigate that challenge. So we do have a resource for you guys. We're going to link it in the show notes.
Yes, definitely take advantage and download that. It just really streamlines the workflow between us and how we communicate with planners. And Taylor and I have just had a lot of success through that workflow, and we want to share that with you so that there's no questions or things left, that whole mystery game. There's no mystery game anymore because we have this flow chart that's really easy to follow and we can't wait to share it with you. So grab those in the show notes. And if you guys are watching on our YouTube channel, you'll see that today I think both, we've said before, Taylor and I both had babies a year ago, and my little postpartum bangs are just out of control. I lost the battle today with the postpartum. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Look at us. You guys have to jump on YouTube at some point and watch these, the video version of these if you're not, listening in the car at some point or going on a walk. I hope that you enjoyed this episode with Daniel. He truly is just such a light in this industry, and his voice is so calming. He's like the Bob Ross of wedding videographer voices. So I just found myself in a trance just listening to all the wealth of knowledge that he had for us, and I know that you guys will love this one a lot. So thanks for joining us.
This is the Level Up Podcast. I'm Taylor Petrinovich.
And I'm Kelly Gilster of 618 Studios.
And we are on a mission to help filmmakers level up their businesses and their craft so they can make more and work less.
We want to help you confidently take your business from mainstream to luxury, and it all starts right here. Well, today we are joined here with Daniel Shackleford, who does amazing work. He is just a filmmaker that I look up to. I think that many of us do too, and we are so excited to have you on the podcast. So thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So Daniel, can you talk a little bit about where you're based, kind of your entrance into the market, how long you've been in business, all those good things?
Yeah, sure. So I've been full-time in the industry for a little over 7 years now. I, in a previous life, worked in the financial industry. I studied finance in college and came out of school and worked in that industry for a number of years before joining my wife in her photography business. So Anna is a wedding photographer, and she started her photography business while we were still in school. So started shooting weddings kind of on the side, and we got married coming in right out of college, like a true Southerner. And she did that on her own for a few years as I worked, and we eventually just got to the place in 2016 where she had grown her business enough to where we felt like if we were going to ever give it a shot, we kind of always wanted to work together in some capacity and see if we couldn't grow the business together. So in 2016, I quit my job in the finance world and joined her in her photography business, essentially as like a full-time second shooter, and then worked collaboratively in the back end on the business side and freed her up to kind of focus more creatively. It's kind of how we approach the business, to divide and conquer, is let her be more creative and me be a little more like in the business on the back end. But yeah, we did that in 2016. And at the time we had no kids. And so we took that opportunity as well for that year to travel. So when I quit to join her in her business, we sold everything and bought a camper, and we lived full time in a camper and a diesel truck and traveled the country and shot weddings and had a great year. Yeah, it was, I mean, definitely a major adjustment. Previously I'm working Monday to Friday, like 7 in the morning to 6, 7 at night. So we just had our nights, and then she's gone on the weekends for her, for her shooting her weddings and out of town a lot. And then so we're kind of like always on opposite schedules. And then we went from that to not only working in the same business full time together, but living in like 110 square feet or whatever it was. So that was definitely like an interesting year and a learning experience for each of us. But that was kind of like my entry into the wedding world. And yeah, I really loved it. I enjoyed starting in photography so I could really like cut my teeth on composition and lighting and posing. And I'm super extroverted, so like uh the relationship side and the client interaction side was kind of just fun right out of the gate for me. I think we're pretty lucky that like our work day, I know we work during the week, but like our work day shooting a wedding is like our client's best day of their life. So it's like they're in such great spirits on the day that we have to come in and work. So that's something I've always really appreciated. But yeah, joined her in that business, did that full time for that whole year. And then that year I just took her 5D Mark III and Canon glass and just started familiarizing myself with the video functions and shooting a lot of my own videos on the side, and just kind of self-teaching on the video side of things, kind of like probably most of us. Yeah, so that was 2016, just kind of started dabbling, and then just kind of rolled into shooting weddings, wedding videos on my own. It was not a nice transition for me being in the industry already with my wife, who's already booking weddings for photography, and she's already 4 years in at that point. So my start in the video world, I always felt like I had a bit of a leg up is in finding clients, as Anna would book a photography wedding and they wouldn't have a videographer, so I could get an easy recommendation to jump right in and start booking clients. So that's kind of where I got the start in the video world.
I love it. I think that there's so much that as filmmakers we could learn from photographers. As a whole, they've been a part of the industry a lot longer than us as videographers. So I'm sure it did give you a leg up in more ways than just like already being in the industry and having an easy kind of like built-in referral network, which is so nice. So that was in 2016. Let's fast forward. How many years has it been? So 7 years, you said? Okay. How does your business look now, 7 years in?
Yeah, the business, I would say I was just kind of like steady growing from a financial perspective at about 25% a year, 25 to 50, just kind of like starting from nothing, those jumps are a little easier, but every year picking up a little more work on the video side of things. I was trying to remember earlier when it was that I stopped shooting any photography weddings with Anna, like all together, so that it was just totally dedicated to video. Um, that may have been like 2019 or 2018, where I completely removed myself from the photo business. Um, but yeah, once I started in the video world, I was doing some like local businesses, like commercials and things like that, and shooting weddings as well, and growing, like I said, steady, probably 25% every year, picking up a few more weddings each year, and shooting mostly local, like Georgia, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina. Mostly Georgia though. Weddings here outside of Atlanta and in the city. Um, and then as COVID hit and things shut down, I would say coming out of COVID, like, the boom that kind of everybody experienced, I think I was able to ride that wave a little bit as well, and really dedicate a lot of my efforts into the wedding business and continue to grow. So the growth really continued through COVID. I think, whatever your opinion is on COVID and how it was handled in those early months of 2020, being in Georgia at the time, we felt very thankful to have restrictions lifted like pretty early. So I was shooting, double masked and kind of terrified, but I was shooting like indoor ballroom weddings in August of 2020. Um, that definitely felt early, but I was thankful for us to be able to like make money and keep shooting that year earlier than a lot of our friends in California, for example.
Us.
So
That
that,
was us.
yes, yeah. So I felt thankful to like be able to keep working towards the end of 2020, and then 21 definitely, like, I feel the efforts in the business really started to kind of pay off, and started growing, continuing to raise rates, and continuing to shoot in places that you know really filled me up. I definitely have, I would say, definitely fallen more in love with the travel side of the business. So destination work is definitely more appealing for me in my business. I enjoy shooting here in Georgia, Florida, Alabama, South Carolina. We have some great spots. Charleston is close, Sea Island is close. We work there a lot. And there's some great spots in Atlanta and Florida, of course, too. And I like all of those. I think, everyone approaches the business differently, but I've really fallen in love with the travel side of things. So that's definitely the direction that the business has been growing, and the way I've been trying to, I guess, like, establish our processes on the back end, and who we're marketing to and who I'm networking with and all of those kinds of things. So for 2023, this year, I think we've already got 14 weddings fully booked for the year. I think there's maybe, so this is what, February? I think there's 2 or 3 more that are close to contracts, and we may add a few more. So we'll probably do about 20 of our own projects this year. And then I get a ton of fulfillment out of second shooting with people. So I like to sprinkle in the second shooting projects when the schedule will allow for it. And I'll probably do between 5 and 10 of those, maybe. So last year I was gone about 34 events between my own and second shooting. And with a family, that's a lot, especially when you talk about, January and December are empty, right? Or depending on where you are, maybe July and August are empty, but it's 34 events crammed in about 8 or 9 months is what it feels like. So I think that number of events is a little hard to maintain year after year. So I am trying to pull that number back. So I would say for like 2024, I'll aim to do between like 10 and 15 of my own and cap it there. And then still want to keep second shooting, honestly. So I'll probably still do between 5 and 10 of those if it makes sense from a scheduling perspective. But that's definitely like how the business is shaping up. One thing I would throw out there too, like with the way that my business is set up compared to some other people, the travel can get really heavy if you don't have, I feel like, the processes in place to make it really seamless. So like if your second shooter is not a spouse, or in my case, my second shooter is like literally my best buddy from college who I brought into the business and shoots with me full time. So when I travel with him, like we share a room because we want to, like we enjoy spending time together and traveling together and hanging out. And so when we're on the road, it doesn't feel as stressful as it might be for someone who is finding a second shooter in every city that they're traveling. So that's one thing that I did learn, is that you definitely have to set up the business in such a way that you can thrive when you are traveling like that. I think from the outside, the industry gets viewed, weddings in particular gets viewed a certain way. It's like, oh yeah, your life is so hard, like shooting, a wedding in Colorado or whatever, or like in the Caribbean. It's like, yeah, tough life. But like especially with kids, you're gone early Thursday until late Sunday, and then you're completely wiped out Monday. So you really have to have things set up in a way that make it as easy as possible to be on the road like that. So that was a big takeaway this past year, is making sure that we had the processes in place to be able to sustainably try and chase those dreams of doing more destination projects.
So, Daniel, we met at Engage. I don't know if you sat in. We've actually mentioned this on another episode, but Brooke Keegan's talk about pricing. But she talked a lot about like pricing transparency, and she's really trying to champion that throughout the industry, across different creative types. And if you're willing to chat a little bit about what your pricing looks like, just so people have an idea. I think that so many people kind of get stuck, like where no one is talking about it, and so they'll live in different pricing tiers a little longer than they need to because they are not aware that people are charging what they do. So I think it can be really encouraging to hear from other people in the industry, especially those who you look up to.
Yeah, totally. I'm an open book on pricing. I'm with you that there does feel, it's an industry where everyone is a small business owner, and there's some privacy around some of your processes, and you've got what you consider to be the secret sauce, and even if you don't know what that is, you want to kind of protect some of that information that you consider to be super private. Pricing definitely falls in that category for a lot of people. So anyone who is maybe shy about sharing pricing, I would never fault. That is a very, like, money in our culture is like a weird thing to talk about in any capacity. So I totally get it. I'll talk about literally anything with anyone. So I have no problem doing that. And I also think it's a way for people to learn and, see what the industry is like. And I may be doing it wrong, so talking about it is a way that I'd find out if I'm doing something that I should change, so I'm an open book when it comes to that. So pricing for me right now, the way I'm bidding my work is I have accepted like a small number of wedding day only clients for this year, maybe two. This is another thing I've kind of like leaned on in my business, is just like knowing what I'm offering. Our clients don't really know what they don't know. It's just like a common saying in the industry, but I feel like they really don't know the gift that we're giving them when it comes to like capturing rehearsal dinner. And so that's something I've really leaned into. So I try to not quote any project that they're not going to bring me in for Friday night as well. And so right now I'll just talk about the 2-day events essentially, and not wedding day only, because I'm just rarely doing that. But the way I break down my pricing at the moment, I just bump things up, but I'm charging for like roughly up to 3 or 4 hours Friday, and up to 10 to 12 hours Saturday, just kind of depending on what's going on for myself, 2 shooters, and delivery of rehearsal dinner, doc, ceremony doc, reception doc, which includes all your intros, your dances, all your toasts, your cake cutting, and your exit, and then anything else that shows up on the timeline. I deliver those docs in addition to the highlight and a teaser, and we price that at 16.7 at the moment. And I quote everything to planners or to clients directly, including travel. So I'll bake in our travel costs, which I will research for each wedding to make sure I'm getting accurate like hotel or flight costs. But inevitably, no matter where it is, it's almost always 3 to 5 grand for travel. Like something close or even a short flight. At minimum, you're probably still going to spend 3 grand on like food per diems, rental car, like all those things. And then at most, even if you're going somewhere unique like Aspen, that's like hard to get to, like 4 to 5 grand is like going to take care of everything, is what I've kind of figured out, unless there's a big conference in that city or something like that affecting rates. So typically contracts that are going out, or proposals I should say, that are going out, are anywhere between like 18 and 21 on average. Some are certainly higher as the events have scaled up. So we have some that are much higher, but like on average, if it's just, hey, we'd love to have you in New York, Friday night rehearsal, Saturday wedding, 3 hours, 10 hours, can you quote it? It's probably going to land right around like 18 to 20 is kind of where I'm bidding work at the moment. Also on the pricing conversation, I will say that like that was like a very long and slow creep up to that number. Also, I think there is an element of understanding the market that you're bidding work in, right? Knowing your planners, knowing your photographers that you're working with, knowing your clients, knowing your budgets for the weddings overall that your clients are hosting, and knowing how you can kind of fit into that. So it's good to be knowledgeable of that rate. But like, I wasn't charging 6 grand and now the next year charging 18. I think some people can certainly make that like huge jump. And I know people that have, and it's amazing. But like, it was a slow creep up as I like would fill the year up, and I'd raise my rates 2 grand and then fill the year up and raise my rates 2 grand. Like uh, I wanted to like work to get to these rates, and I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to continue to fill the year, which I'm close to doing now, and then raise again, and kind of go through that exercise. So anyone that's listening that's not charging that much, I hope is not discouraged by that number. I think it's a goal, if anything, something I would hope they could be encouraged by. Maybe if they're not charging that, they can say, oh, that's a attainable number that I can get to. And if they're charging more, that's fantastic. I hope I'm not undercutting you. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I know people price anything from like 8 to 10 to 40, 50, 60. It's like every wedding is unique and there's different tiers to the market. So I feel very, very thankful and very grateful for the business that I've had the opportunity to build. And this business has been built on the backs of lots of other people than myself, people who have referred me work, and people who have, planners who have trusted me, and photographers who have referred me, and like all those things. So it's not just a me thing for sure, but I definitely feel very like, you probably all remember like when you're charging $2,500 for a wedding and you're just like, man, if I could just charge 6. So when Anna and I started working together, when I joined her in her business, I just remember like laying in the house, I was working my other job. We were talking about the possibility of us being able to do this business together full time, only her photo business supporting our family. And I'll never forget, we were like, if we could just be charging $4,500 for a wedding, like we'd be set, like we'd be covered. We could support our family. We could do all the things. And so she grew the business to where she was able to charge that. And so then I quit and I joined her, and we continue to grow, but it's interesting and humbling to like look back, we all can do it. If you've ever raised your rate ever, you can look back and be like, I can't believe I used to do this amount of work for that amount of money. And then whatever you're charging now, you probably feel like you're not charging enough, no matter where you are.
The goalpost is always moving.
It's always moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the industry, I feel like weddings are so consuming, like all consuming. You know, uh, it's so much work, and um, yeah, just it takes a lot more than you ever anticipated when you get into it. And it's a great industry. I love it to death. But yeah, I think, like you said, the goalpost is always moving. So it's moving for us as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing just the insight of your pricing and process. I think that it's only going to help our side of the industry just rise. I know for us, with I felt like, yeah, like Taylor said, people kind of like stay in a tier a little bit longer than they should have without hearing things. And I definitely felt that way too. Like in the last 2 years, I think just with like COVID, it kind of like obviously messed with a lot of our businesses, especially those of us here in California. I don't think things were like technically opened up officially until July 2021. And so I remember like then kind of hearing through the grapevine of like photographers or planners of like, oh, you guys, like, you need to raise your prices, you're too cheap, so and so's charging this. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, well, I'm so happy for them because they were someone who like came to us for mentor sessions in the past. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing that they're like going for it. And I'm like, but I need to raise my prices too. So it was like super eye opening for us. And it just gives you that boost of confidence that you are worth it and that you can do it. And it's scary each time. Like, I'll never forget the first wedding that we booked in the 5 figures. Like, I was so nervous. I felt like I was like sick to my stomach. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're paying us $10,000. Like, we're not worthy. We can't do it. And Paul's kind of my champion in the corner that's like, yes, we're worth it. We can do it. So yeah, if we all have those stories of like, oh, if we could just charge this, and then now you're looking back and you may be charging double what you originally thought would be where you wanted to be. So I did want to kind of go back to, you talked about how much you enjoy second shooting. It fills up your cup. You obviously have a very successful business on its own. What is it about second shooting that you feel like is so important for your business? And why would you encourage maybe those listening to also incorporate some second shooting throughout their workflow?
Yeah. So second shooting, I feel like gets a weird, people form very weird opinions about doing that. It's like if I'm growing my own business as a standalone shooter, I don't want to muddy that water by second shooting, because what will people think? That like, oh, my business isn't doing well and I can't book my own weddings, or am I pulling back and now I'm just second shooting, or whatever it might be. So I'm like certainly aware of all of those opinions. I think I just got to the place I want to like really lean into the things in this line of work that fill my cup. Like I really only want to be doing the things during my workday, or if I'm having to leave my family, like I want it to all be, for reasons of course, like growing the business and making money for the family, but I really want to be happy doing the things that I'm doing. And so very early on in this industry, as I got further into it, there were a number of things that I saw that I really did not enjoy. One very large thing is editing. Like, I'm extroverted. I'm a people person. I want to be with somebody in the room. I want to look them in the eye. I want to talk to them. I want to get to know them. I would love every day of my workday to be filled with just interacting with people. And that's not a reality, but I did find that a wedding would take me 40, 50 hours to complete. That's 40, 50 hours of me alone, um, at my computer in my basement, that is just really, like, honestly, like tearing me down. Like I'm gonna be down there all day working and at my laptop hunched over, whatever, and I come up and I'm like, I'm a worse husband, I'm a worse father, I'm in like a bad mood, like all these things. It just like, that is not how I want to spend my days. So in my own business, I started bringing on editors. So I have editors that work for me now for my own projects. And so, roundabout way of getting to the second shooting thing, what I love about this industry is the in-person work. I love to shoot. I like to be there with people. I like to shoot, but it's more, I think, about being there with the people. And so um, second shooting is all of my favorite things for my own business, but I get to do it with somebody else, right? So if it's if it's a lead shooter that I really admire, and I've definitely had um, a lot of amazing opportunities to work with some of the people in the industry that I have looked up to since even before I started in the industry. Their work that I used to watch at my old job. I would watch their videos. Um, but I've had the opportunity to just work with some of these people that I admire their work and how they handle themselves and all of that. And so if I come in and second shoot for them, I'm getting to just come and do all of the things that I love most. So I get to come, usually I'm traveling for those gigs. So I'm getting to travel, I'm getting to spend time with people that I really admire and look up to. And I'm also just getting to be in person with lots of people. And then in my mind, like a second shooter doing their job really well, aside from providing the coverage that you've been assigned to provide, right? Like if I don't do groom prep right, I could tell a million jokes all day long and make everybody laugh, but at the end of the day, I didn't do my job well. So aside from actually covering the things I'm supposed to cover from a video perspective, to me, being a really great second shooter, um, there's a lot of intangibles attached to that. So freeing up the lead shooter to think and shoot more creatively is one. And so if we're, for example, maybe we're all shooting portraits, or maybe it's bridal portraits or something, and the groom is there and the photographer's there and all that kind of stuff. If I can maybe appropriately steal the groom away and just kind of cut up with him for a little bit, or if the family is kind of lingering and chiming in, if I can kind of sneak over and just like joke around with them and be fun and lighthearted, I'm going to enjoy that. First of all, you know, I'm just going to enjoy doing that. But if I'm doing it in such a way that allows that lead shooter to be more like focus in on what they're trying to capture, to me, that's super helpful. I also just like to be helpful in general. So as a second shooter, if the lead is styling details, or they need something from their bag downstairs, like I enjoy being like, oh, let me run grab it. Like I like to move the ball down the field. Um, and so second shooting, you get lots of opportunities to just be really helpful and um, and to build relationships. Like some of the greatest friendships I have in this industry have been formed either as second shooting for the person I became friends with, or the photographer that I got to work with on that wedding, or the photographer's second shooter. Like one of my best friends in this industry is a second shooter or a third shooter for a photographer that I was on a wedding with. So it's like 4 degrees of separation. But without second shooting that wedding, I would have never met that person. So to me, and maybe I've been very lucky and blessed to like have built the relationships with people that I can second shoot with that I do really admire, and the projects do really fill me up. But I saw very early on that I really enjoyed that work purely from like the joy of the work itself, and I just wanted to lean into that. And yeah, like I said, I feel very grateful. I've had a lot of like really, really amazing opportunities and growth that's come out of second shooting. And so, yeah, it's just been a really great experience. There are lots of things with second shooting you need to be careful of. I'm always very respectful to never like cross boundaries or build relationships with planners that I'm second shooting with, or with the photographers, or whatever. You need to like be very mindful of your place and your position as a second shooter. But I think if you do that respectfully and you really help and you enjoy that kind of like personable side of second shooting, to me, like I said, I'm going to do it this year. I'll do it next year. Like I don't have plans, even though my business has continued to grow. I really have no plans to try and pull back on that, at least for a few projects a year. It's just I get to go do all the things I love and then come home and I'm not editing. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I have to be honest, I've actually never second shot, not a single time. So I'm feeling very inspired by this conversation, and maybe, just maybe, 2023 will be the first year I venture into that world. But I have two questions just before I forget. My first question is, how did you put yourself in a position to be second shooting with these filmmakers? We don't want to name any names, but you really do shoot with some of the best in the industry, and it's just incredible. And um, I love seeing you working with them all the time. So how did that, come to fruition? And also, I would love to hear maybe some specifics on how second shooting has helped you on the business side. I know it fills your cup up as like a human being, but like I want to kind of dig into some of the bullet points of how it's actually like helped move your own business forward. But first, how did those connections come about?
So I guess when I started second shooting, um, it was back in 2018. I was helping Anna with a photo wedding, and there was the videographer there that I really admired, and met him for the first time at the wedding. And I was just very, slowly over the 10 hours together, not right when I met the person, but I was just very intentional with my time with this person that I admired their work and I looked up to them and modeled a lot of my own shooting after that person, even. And so I was very intentional with just becoming friends with that person in during the day and making sure that they could see me working professionally, efficiently, and care for people. I think the one thing people are always looking for is like, can a lead shooter, can they leave you alone in the room, like with the mother of the bride or with the bride, and not feel any anxiety about what you might do or say, right? And I feel like that's something that you can't really necessarily teach. So like my second shooter, for example, had no prior video experience, but I could teach him all of that, right? But I knew I could trust him in any social situation. He's super likable, very aware of everything, and so I wanted to make sure on that specific wedding that that person knew that I could, handle myself in a professional manner, and that I also was familiar with the person's work. I've like very forward, you just like straight up communicated this to him at the end of the night, but really admire the work, admire the style, admire how he carried himself, like all of the things. Like I looked, I made sure he knew that I was familiar with him and his business and his work, and just put myself out there that I think I just straight up said, if you ever need help, I would love to come and help you shoot if you ever need a third shooter or whatever. And that night he asked me to shoot a wedding coming up in a couple months after that. So we definitely hit it off, and I think maybe just me putting myself out there was a part of it. And that person already kind of knowing that I know the style, I know the gear that he works with, like all of those things to make it really like a seamless thing for him to bring me in. And then some of the other folks that I've gotten to work with, it's the same thing. I think it's just like I'm quick to build friendships with people. That's like my favorite thing is becoming your best friend, like a golden retriever. And so I think I just kind of like out of the gate would connect with people really deeply, really quickly, and become friends. And then, if I wanted to work with them, I would definitely, I think I just told them that I would love to work with you sometime. If you ever need help, I'm in Atlanta, but I can travel, whatever the situation is for you. Yeah, just made it known, I think was probably the biggest thing. Cause I think the assumption is probably that, like Taylor, for example, if you've never done it, if the assumption is maybe you don't want to, right? You've got your own business. Why would you like take another Saturday away from your family to go, work with this other person? But if you're interested in it, I think just put yourself out there and let people know. And I'd probably say let specific people know. I think there's also some flattery maybe involved. Like, hey, you specifically, I know your work. I really like your work. I know your style, like all the things. Would love to come and serve your clients alongside you one day if you ever need it. So I think that's kind of like probably what was the biggest thing in getting me at least involved. As far as how it's helped my business grow, like I said, you need to be very respectful in those situations of the connections that you're making. And I was always um, very mindful of making sure I wasn't like pursuing that planner or that photographer to try and work with them behind this one videographer's back in particular, just for example. Um, but shooting with that person, you definitely get to see how someone who's far ahead of you in the industry, see how they carry themselves on the day. You see how they move their gear around. You see how they capture certain moments. You see like all of these, behind the scene things on how somebody else is doing it. This is a very isolating industry as a whole, and photo and video especially, right? You're just kind of like on your own to learn and to grow and to change. Like certainly there's some education on your own and all that's involved, and communities online have certainly helped give some transparency there, but for the most part you're kind of just on your own to learn and self teach and all that. And so second shooting just gives you an opportunity to see in person how someone else is doing things, how they're operating, how they pack their camera bags, like all those little details. um, I have There have been things that I saw someone do and thought that's a great, process I should implement. And there's things that I've seen people do that I'm like, oh, I can see why they would do it that way, but I like the way I do it more, whatever. So in both situations, I'm learning something. So I think second shooting, you're giving yourself a chance to learn a ton from other people. But it also might just be like validating the things you're already doing. We all know what we're doing. So it's not that it's going to transform your business necessarily or your processes, but I've taken a lot of wonderful things away from working with people.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I love how it's just so refreshing to hear your take on second shooting because it is true. I think that just the natural idea is like, oh, someone's second shooting, like they're not filling up their calendar year when you're, here saying like that's not the case. Like I have a full year and I use second shooting to reinvigorate me, to be, come home, be a better dad, be a better husband because it fills my cup. So that's really cool. It's something that I've really never thought about. Like I could see it from the side of, learning from those who you want to, just see how they carry themselves on a wedding day and all of that. But to just truly use it to, I guess, you know, propel your business forward in a new and better way, that makes a lot of sense to me. So that's really inspiring to hear how much you still enjoy that. And I think everyone listening, something that we all should take away from it.
Yeah, and everybody might, you might prefer the editing, right? You might prefer the storytelling ability in post, right? And that might be your favorite thing in the industry. So you're probably not super stoked on second shooting those extra weekends or whatever. Maybe you actually would prefer to edit for other people, whatever it might be. But for me specifically, I love the in-person work. I love the shooting. I love the relationship building and all that. So yeah, it's been a great piece to my business.
Yeah, Daniel, this is great. We've had somebody come on and talk about hiring second shooters, so we thought it would be really like close the loop to get somebody who likes to second shoot to come talk about that side and that perspective of it. But you're definitely a filmmaker that I look up to, and I love your work and the way you conduct yourself. I just really admire you. And I think that if our listeners were not already aware of you, and once they start following you, they will feel very similarly. Before we close out the episode, do you have any like tips or bits of advice you'd like to share? And then if you could just tell the listeners where they can find you online.
That was way too kind, but thank you. Um, yeah, I think the thing that like maybe I've chewed on a lot lately is just especially in the wintertime, this industry can absolutely like steal your joy. Like I know so many people right now are not shooting. Like it is the wintertime, weddings are not happening and you're not shooting. And in a lot of cases, you might not be booking either at the moment. And it's such a like feast or famine type feeling. And this industry is really tough from that perspective, especially if you're providing for a family, and then even more if your business is the sole source of income for your family. And so I think I would just like leave a little bit of like encouragement that I feel like I've got a great year ahead of me. So I feel really happy at this point, like in February of the year we're talking about. But I have been in the February of the year I'm talking about and been like on monster.com. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a very cyclical thing in this industry. And what's cyclical is like your joy and contentment in the industry in a lot of cases based on how you feel like the health of your business is at that very moment. But you got to always, in my mind, you got to always like put yourself back into your busy season. And mentally, when you were like, if I could just get a break and start working on my backlog, I'd be so happy or whatever. And now we're reaching this point where people's backlogs are beginning to be empty and they're ready to start shooting. And then they maybe don't have work for a couple more weeks or months. And it just feels heavy. Certainly don't like stop hustling and trying to find new work, but like don't let that steal you of your joy, and take it as an opportunity to like lean into the things in life that you want to pursue that you can't during the busy season. Like spend more time with family, chase hobbies, like whatever it is, but like don't look at your downtimes or maybe a season where you're not booking or you've raised rates and you're not booking or whatever. Work very hard to protect yourself from being pulled down by those negative emotions, and find people that you can communicate with, even on Instagram in this industry, that you can talk openly with about those struggles, and be encouraged by those people, and maybe even network through those people to continue to grow. But I just feel like there's been a lot of people I've spoken with lately that they feel like the work's not coming right now. But like, I think I remember having that conversation with some of these people last year, like at this exact same time. It's just like the nature of the industry. And I feel it too. I have felt it many, many times. And I would just like to encourage people to not let that like bring you down, like continue to be motivated and hustle, and chase what you can, but also really take it as an opportunity and be grateful that you do have the downtime to grow and focus on other things. So that's probably what I would maybe leave people with right now. You can find me on Instagram, Daniel Shackleford, Shackle. I don't do much there, but you can find me there. I'm there. But thank you for having me. This is great. Y'all are both killing it, and you produce like such beautiful work. And I'm sure people love being able to like listen in on the podcast and get this like behind the scenes look from filmmakers that they admire in the industry as well. And I just appreciate you bringing me in.
Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, so sweet. And such wise words just throughout this whole episode. We're so thankful that you had us on. I just felt like your voice was so calming, and I just found myself like entranced in your words. And we can't wait to see everything you produce this year.
Thank you for joining us in this conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, please help us reach more filmmakers just like you by taking a screenshot and sharing it on social media. Don't forget to tag us at The Level Up Co.
And join us again next week, same time, same place, as we continue to level up the industry together.